I want to welcome everyone to another episode of the Invisible InCourage SHOW, hosted by the Invisible Disabilities Association. IDA's goal is to change the way the world sees disabilities. I'm Wayne Cannell, IDA's founder and president. I'm so excited to have one of IDA's ambassadors, Emily Cram, join us. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Well, we're so thrilled to have you here on this Invisible InCourage podcast. We just love learning about people, and we're so excited to learn about your journey. So speaking of that, why don't you share a little bit about your personal journey with ERBIN? People are going to wonder what's ERBIN and what is it and the impact on your family.
Awesome. So ERBIN is a connective tissue disorder. I am the only woman diagnosed with ERBIN in the United States. It's been a long, hard journey. When I was little, my dad had a brain abscess, and he was the longest living male in his family at that point, and he was only 30 years old. And so we realized something genetically was happening, and so we started to fight to find answers. And my mom actually got us into the National Institute of Health, and they realized that we all three, both my dad, my brother, and myself, have 3 aneurysms on our ascending aorta. And so we started going to the NIH every single year, and we contribute to research on health and immunity and connective tissue, and they help us stay healthy and alive, to be frank.
So is it associated with a gene? Obviously, because it's in the family?
Yes. Honestly, I'm not sure what gene, but yes, it is associated with some kind of genetic mutation.
And that's an ERBIN spelled, how do you spell it?
ERBIN. They actually named it in 2017, and I actually got to meet the professionals who named it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned something too. You talked about your dad being the oldest living male right now, or you suspect that somebody else in your family might have had it too.
Yes, I believe that my grandfather had it, and he died at the age of 29, and then my uncle as well, who died, I believe, at age 32.
Wow. So there's like 3 people we know of in the world, and while it is a pleasure to meet you, I know that this is something that's part of your life. You know, one of the things we talk about in Invisible Disabilities is that what you're living with, that invisible nature of illness, that thing that's impacting you, it's part of who you are. It makes you who you are. It's like being left-handed and having brown hair or whatever. It's part of who you are, and it makes up a part of who we are in life. About 27% of the population has a disability, and about 57% have a chronic illness. So it's more normal than you think.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So tell me some of the challenges of living with a rare disease. I mean, growing up, up till now, when did you kind of find out? How old were you, and what have been those real challenges?
I was really young when we found out that I had ERBIN, but it didn't really affect my day-to-day until I would say I was about 12 years old, and I started to face daily joint dislocations. I would wake up and my shoulder would be out of place, or I couldn't walk to class, and so my friends would wheel me from class to class, and it was really hard. There were a lot of labels associated with being wheeled from class to class, and at the same time, nobody believed me because I looked like I was healthy. But I was in so much pain, and it felt like my body had betrayed me in a way that couldn't come back. And even health professionals, I remember visiting countless doctors when I was 12 years old, and they eventually sent me to palliative care, acknowledging that there's no way I can get better, but we can find ways to just make my situation a little more comfortable as is. And I remember so many professionals telling me that pain is in my head, and it felt very invalidating to me because I felt like I was missing out on so many life experiences that I wanted to be part of. And alongside that, the double-edged sword of feeling guilty, or like maybe I am a liar. So it was difficult.
Well, when did they find out about your brother, right? And what's your age difference there?
My brother is 4 years older than me. They found out about the same time. I believe I was probably 2 and he was 6. So really little.
Mm-hmm. And how has that impacted? Obviously, it impacts him as well, right? So
Yes.
how is that both of you guys living with this? How
Mhm.
is that, how do you manage it, right? In that way.
Yeah. It takes a lot for me just to feel normal. Something that I turned to whenever I was facing all of that pain was running and yoga, which a lot of professionals advised me against. But I found that if I could build the muscle surrounding my joints, I could keep my body together. And that kind of in itself brought a lot of disbelief because it looked like I run because I'm normal, but really I run to feel normal. And there's a lot of things like that that we're very committed to going about our day to day.
Well, as you figured out, I mean, the reality is a lot of people who are chronically ill or dealing with disabilities is you really have to own your disability or your disease that you're dealing with because nobody else is going to be your champion in most cases, right?
Right.
At the Invisible Disabilities, we try to give people, for people to hear their voice, to hear your voice, right? I mean, it's one of the things that, why we asked you to be an ambassador, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later here. But it's not that we want to be somebody else's voice. We want to help them share their voice, right? And what they're doing with, because like
Yeah.
you said, the doctors don't even believe you. So what do you do when the doctors believe you, right? You have to go and really be there on your own. And I think about the disbelief about, oh, there's nothing wrong with her. She can run. Look at her. She runs. She does yoga.
Right.
That's a big thing with invisible disabilities that people don't understand. They think, oh, well, the person looks really healthy, or they can do something that is healthy. Like maybe some people can't even run. It's not because of disability, but it's not about what you can do with your body per se.
Yes.
The impact of all the other things, right?
Mm. Yeah, and there's
Like,
so many times where I've had to cancel plans and I felt unreliable for that, but really that was me just giving my body grace and time. Um, but yeah, there's so many examples of that. And then along with the disbelief and finding a commitment to staying healthy, there were a lot of trial and errors. I remember there being a lot of examples of like trying a new medicine, and there's especially with a rare disease and being the only woman, they really don't have answers for me, and so I just have to be part of their search for them. Yeah.
wow. I think of one of our awards we gave years ago, Perseverance Award, to Diane Van Daren. And Diane Van Daren, talk about a runner. She ran the Iditarod pulling a sled in Alaska, 430 miles. I mean, she's
Wow.
ran a mile race. She's just, you think, oh my goodness, amazing. Well, she had seizures. And the only time she wouldn't have seizures is when she would run. And so she ran and ran and ran and ran. And eventually she got surgery and was able to stop the seizures. But what happened is there was a side effect to the surgery. She now does not have the ability to tell time, distance, or direction. Well, that's really hard for somebody who's running, and she doesn't know if she's been running for an hour or for 5 hours. I mean, at least technology nowadays would help, but she'd forget to pick up her kids from school, all kinds of stuff. And we think about, oh, look, but she can run, and
Mhm.
we forget about the other things that impact your life. I mean,
Yeah,
life is not all just about running, right?
right. Mhm.
I think about all those aspects. So you've taken these things and you've been living, you're, I'm guessing you're not 12 anymore. You're in your early 20s, I'm guessing, or somewhere around there. But,
I'm 19.
19. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
You know, but this whole notion of, having to live with this thing, well, you're diagnosed when you're 12. Here you are 7 years later. What are the things during that journey, has how it's impacted you, right? You talked about how's it impacted relationships with friends and things like that. How has it impacted you? You talked about, well, they don't know how to treat it, so I'm a guinea pig, right?
Mm. Yes. It I think it took me a long time to find where my identity lied within my condition, and I like the way that IDA advocates that it is part of your identity because it never felt right for me to say that urban isn't part of who I am, but it never felt right for me to say urban is who I am. And
Mhm.
there was a lot of trial and error in that as well, and what was healthy for me mindset wise. And I think that as I've gone through this journey, I've learned a lot about boundaries with myself and my own inner voice.
So how did your family, obviously, there's an impact on the family, right?
Mm,
And how has this been on the impact on your family and how your family's kind of engaged it? Obviously, your brother, your dad. I mean, wow, your mom. How has your mom, dealt with all this? I mean, this is a tough battle to handle, right?
yes. My mom is Wonder Woman. She is the reason I got into the National Institutes of Health. She is the reason I am healthy. She has done so much to save my life, save my brother and my father's life. She is absolutely amazing. But through this time, we've really done so well banding together and fighting for each other when, you can't fight for yourselves because there is times like that.
Well, that isolation, right? So how's
Yeah.
it impacted things like friendships?
Mm. I think it's hard because something that some of my friends have trouble understanding is that getting the flu for me means 3 months out of life because my immune system is so inefficient, and so I think it's hard because let me think about where I was going with that.
Well, I mean, my wife Sherry, has
Yeah,
Lyme disease and MS and a host of other chronic illnesses, and totally understand that. I mean, the impact of a cold. People think, oh, it's just a cold. You're right. It's bronchial pneumonia for her for 9 months, right?
yeah,
Those things that we kind of forget. And so what happens is it does limit how you interact with people. And so how has that, impacted kind of those relationships, right? I mean, obviously the great thing is nowadays we can still connect with other than just being in their presence, right?
yes, that's true, thank God for social media, but in 7th grade specifically, this experience is coming to mind, but I missed about 89 days of school, and I remember the FOMO, fear of missing out, that I felt for so long, and even then, sometimes even now, sometimes it feels like I'm paying myself back by trying to reach and grab hold of those experiences from what I missed just from 7th grade, which, of course, was so many years ago, but it feels like I'm almost indebted to my sickness based off of what it has pulled me from. And I'm sure that's affected a lot of my friendships because the fear of missing out, I mean, it's just it affects so much.
Well, one of the things we do know that suffering can produces endurance, and endurance produces character. And I'll tell you, it's done that to you. I can tell just the conversations I've had with you. Um, in fact, what's exciting is just to hear about. Tell us about the Miss America pageant. I know that this is something that's become important in your life. We have other ambassadors involved in the pageants. My wife was Miss Grand Junction many years ago, and people just think that, oh, they're just a beauty pageant, right? Well, that's part of it, but in some cases, there's a lot more to a pageant than just that. So tell us a little bit about that and your how you've been involved.
I found the Miss America opportunity when I was a senior in high school, and it gave me the microphone to share my story and break chains. So, my senior year of high school, I created a mentorship program actually because my original passion was trauma and advocating for trauma informed care. And so I became the creator and founder of a kind of a weekly I'm gonna restart that actually. Um, yeah, so I found the Miss America opportunity when I was 18 years old, and it gave me the microphone to share my story and create a philanthropy. And at the time, I wanted to advocate for trauma and trauma informed care because a chronic illness is by textbook an adverse childhood experience. And so I created a mentorship program where I paired young women and older female role models in my community together, and we met weekly focusing on how relationships heal. And that passion has shaped today into becoming an ambassador for the Invisible Disabilities Association, which includes my passion for advocating for some trauma and traumatic experiences, but also furthering deeper and specifically with my story. But pageantry, like you said, is just so much more than a beauty pageant. And of course, beauty is an influence just like it is everywhere, but it's so much more. It is talent, it is public speaking, it is becoming more and more well-rounded and the person you want to be. The whole focus is becoming and also knowing at the same time that you're enough as you are.
Mm. No, that's fantastic. Right. It's about you in that sense, right?
Mm,
It's about what you've gone through, what what you're working on. In
yes.
fact, speaking of working on, I know that you're in college now, and you've picked a major. And so, what is your kind of focus there?
Yes, so I am a sophomore at the Ohio State University. Had to include the and
I
represent.
know I looked it up, and that's what it says.
Yep, that actually is trademarked. So, the Ohio State University, and I'm majoring in public affairs as well as sociology. And public affairs, fun fact, I was driving to orientation and my original major was psychology just because I know I would enjoy that, but it didn't really feel like me. And I was watching Miss America at the time, Madison Marsh, speak about her career aspirations, and she was majoring in public policy. And I was so inspired by that that I changed my major that day. So that's just another little thing about pageantry is it's just inspiring and it changes the trajectory of your life. But yes, I am hoping to take a role in government in the future. And so after this, I will be working in the nonprofit sector and then eventually go to law school.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So, how do you think being an IDA ambassador is going to kind of help you in this journey, along with living with your invisible disability?
I think it's networking not only to professionals in the field that I aspire to be in, but also to individuals around the country who are experiencing stories similar to mine. And I'm from rural, small town Ohio. And to be frank, there's not a lot of stories around here that are like mine. And so to not only bring my story publicly to my community, but also for myself and for my own healing to connect to people around the United States and truly know that I'm not alone. I think there's so much power to that.
Well, yeah, every day, as my wife would say, sometimes what people say hurts more than the illness, right?
Yeah.
And so, you wish that didn't happen. We wish people weren't treated that they were lesser, or they were liars or fakers, or making things up, that they were trying to hide it, all those things. As I talked about earlier, the prevalence is, it's more normal than not,
Yes.
and so because of that, you would be surprised. There's probably a lot more people where you live, but like I said, they don't have that voice. So you're going to give an opportunity to be a voice to help them as well through the ambassadorship. And I'm real excited about you being part of that. So as we get towards the kind of the end of this, what is anything else you kind of want to share about, about your pageant, about your schooling, just, your philosophy of life, even, what is, we like to always say, give us one thing that gives you courage to make it through today. Now, that's not to make it through the month or the week or through a pandemic. It's what's the one thing that gives you courage? We call this the Invisible InCourage SHOW, and that's I-N courage. It's not E-N. We want to encourage you, yes, but it's courage that you need in the middle of difficult times. And so
Mm.
share with us that one thing that gives you courage. And then, anything else you really want to share about who you are and what you and an impact you want to have. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. I am just so thankful for the opportunity to represent the Invisible Disabilities Association and get experience in the field that have dreamt of for so long, and also to see where my story takes me. and how it connects me and makes an impact on communities around me. I'm excited to share my story and share IDA's mission on the Miss Ohio stage and hopefully eventually on a national platform. So I think that there's so much power in storytelling, and I'm so proud of the way that the Invisible Disability Association has embodied and put so much priority on storytelling. So thank you for that. I would say that my inspiration to get through the day, I remember a long time ago, I was going through such a hard time in my life, and my joint dislocations were getting worse and worse. And I remember just feeling absolutely buried. And one of my best friends said to me that I wasn't buried and I was planted, and I wasn't going to suffocate in where I was, but I was actually going to grow because of it. And I
Mm.
remember that every day from then on.
Yeah, well, what a great, courageous thing, right? To have that courage to be where you're at and be
Yeah.
able to share that. That's awesome. Well, we so appreciate that. And we're looking forward to a lot of great times ahead. For you, through your college, through your pageant experience as an ambassador here at Invisible Disabilities, the Invisible InCourage. We want to have stories like you talked about that really impact people, because that's
Yeah.
truly what we're about. We're an awareness organization that really comes alongside people
Yeah,
and
and
helps.
I've grown in awareness actually as I've come to work with you guys that you're right, invisible disabilities encompass so much more than I thought. I know that my story feels isolated just to me because it's a rare disease, but actually so many people can understand that isolation even, or the pain, and all the different aspects of my living condition. So I've learned
Right.
a lot and grown in awareness just as an ambassador myself.
Well, we're so thrilled to have you. Thank you so much, Emily, for joining us. We want to let everybody know to make sure you join us for other great episodes of the Invisible InCourage Show. You can go to Invisible InCourage, that's INCOURAGE.show, or you can go to our Invisible Disabilities Network, which is our podcast at ida.fm, and you can also see this at ida.tv, which is our YouTube. Make sure you go to invisibledisabilities.org and catch everything. Everything's on there. We're so thrilled to have you. Check out the ambassador page. All of our ambassadors have up there, so you can connect with them. We'd love to have you do that, and they'll make a connection back with you. So thank you so much again, Emily, for joining us today on the Invisible InCourage Show. Thank you.
Thank you so much.